Morbid Facts, Part 1. Bobby Driscoll, the original voice of Peter Pan, became addicted to narcotics when his acting career failed as he got older. In 1968, two little boys got lost while playing in Manhattan's abandoned underground area, and they found Driscoll's rotting body. His body was surrounded by beer bottles, a religious pamphlet, and a wooden crucifix. He was only 31 years old. In 1967, 15-year-old James Gordon Wolcott shot and killed his mother, father, and older sister after sniffing airplane glue. After being diagnosed with schizophrenia, he spent only 7 years at a psychiatric hospital before being released back into the public. Today, he is an award-winning psychology professor and the head of Millikan University's Behavioral Science Department. Never forget the suspicious story behind Gary Webb. Gary was an award-winning investigative journalist who was one of the first to break the story of the CIA's involvement in the cocaine trade. In 2004, Gary was found dead in his home with 2 gunshot wounds to the head. The young man on the left broke into his neighbor's house wielding a knife and threatened to kill the old man. But 72-year-old Frank Cordy happened to be a former boxing champion, and he gave the burglar a lawful beatdown. The Antwerp diamond heist in 2003 was one of the biggest robberies in history. A Belgian man stole $100 million in diamonds after bypassing 10 levels of high security. He had almost gotten away with it, but was convicted via DNA evidence on a salami sandwich that he'd left near the crime scene. In 1980, autistic savant Mark DeFriest was sentenced to 4 years in prison after quote-unquote stealing tools left to him in his father's will. However, his original sentence has since developed into 34 years after 13 escape attempts, 7 of which were successful. Known as the Houdini of Florida, DeFriest could replicate any key by memorizing their pattern and reconstructing them out of anything available. Serial rapist Billy Milligan had a mental disorder that split his mind into at least 24 different personalities. Each personality featured a different speech pattern, accent, and sitting position. He was famously acquitted in court due to the claim that 2 of his alternate personalities had committed the crimes without Milligan being aware of it. This photo is the definition of fear. A young woman in LA was evading a home intruder by hiding on her roof, and she managed to grab her phone and call 911. She said that her greatest fear was that the intruder would try to hide where she was hiding. Authorities soon had the area surrounded, and the man is now in prison. The top map shows mysterious cases of people vanishing without a trace. The bottom map shows America's largest cave systems. Juan Catalan spent nearly 6 months in jail for the murder of a teenage girl. He was the prime suspect only until his lawyer found some unused footage from HBO's Curb Your Enthusiasm. The footage proved that Catalan had been at a Dodgers game with his 6-year-old daughter at the time of the murder. In 1915, convicted Mexican revolutionary Wenceslo Moguel was sentenced to death without a trial. He was shot 9 times by a firing squad, but miraculously survived all 9 bullets. He even survived the coup de grace, one final shot at point-blank range to ensure death. Although in excruciating pain, Moguel waited for his executioners to leave before he fled the scene and made his way to safety. He amazingly lived on for another 60 years, dying at the age of 85. A 45-year-old woman named Christine Barnett adopted a 6-year-old girl in 2010. The woman was recently charged with abandoning her daughter in Indiana and fleeing to Canada back in 2013. However, Barnett claims that her daughter is actually a 22-year-old sociopath with dwarfism who is pretending to be a child. She also claims that the girl has attempted to kill her on multiple occasions. She says the girl has tried to push her into an electric fence, has poured bleach into her coffee, and has threatened to stab her in her sleep. The woman claims that the adoption was a scam and that the girl was actually born in 1989. A man walked into a Walmart wearing an employee vest and told the cashier they were wanted in the office. He then helped the remaining customer in line, emptied the cash register, and walked right out with the money. He likely robbed other Walmart locations this exact same way. This weapon is called the Apache revolver. They were used by the French game Les Apaches in the early 1900s. It is the concept of a pepperbox revolver, a knuckle duster, and a dual-edged knife all built into one. In one of his interviews, serial killer Richard Ramirez once said, "When I die, I want to be buried with sunglasses on and my hands tied behind my head, so when I deteriorate, I'll be the chillest skeleton in the graveyard." In 2015, 3-year-old Jair Sims was found dead in a park in Maryland while his mother was pushing him on a swing. It is believed that she pushed him on the swing for 45 hours straight, even in the rain. Romisha Sims, who is schizophrenic, had suffered from a psychotic breakdown while playing with her son at the park. By the time she woke up, her son had died as a result of hypothermia and dehydration. She was found legally insane and not criminally responsible for the tragedy of her son. One of the actors in The Exorcist went on to become an actual serial killer. Paul Bateson, who plays a nurse in the film, eventually confessed to the killing and dismembering of 6 gay men in the late 1970s. He was released from prison in 2004. In 2014, a family bought a $1.3 million dream home in Westfield, New Jersey, but they never moved in because they immediately started receiving sinister, threatening letters from someone called The Watcher. He would write messages like, "All of the windows and doors allow me to watch and track you as you move through the house. Have you found what is in the walls yet? I am pleased to know your names now in the name of the young blood you have brought to me." The family has been unsuccessful in their attempts to resell the property. Former intern at NASA named Thad Roberts stole $20 million worth of moon rocks to have sex on them with his girlfriend. He was only caught when he tried to sell them online to undercover FBI agents. He served 6 years in a federal prison for the crime. This is a photo of John Lennon signing an autograph for Mark David Chapman, the man who would kill him 5 hours later. 25 years following the unsolved murder of Nicole Van Den Herk, her stepbrother falsely confessed to killing her. He did this so that her body would be exhumed for DNA testing, which led to the arrest and prosecution of her true killer. One of serial killer Jeffrey Dahmer's victims nearly escaped his gruesome fate. In 1991, a 14-year-old boy named Konarak ran naked into the street, heavily drugged and covered in blood. In his brain-injured state, Konarak struggled to explain his situation when authorities arrived. Dahmer eventually found the boy with the police and convinced them that the boy was his 19-year-old lover. Despite bystanders pleading for his life, the officers returned the boy to Dahmer's apartment. They noticed a strange smell in the apartment, which was the decaying corpse of a previous victim in the bedroom, but made no attempts to investigate. Later that evening, Dahmer sexually abused, killed, and dismembered the boy. If you were to swim near a pod of narwhals and happen to hear one whistle, it might be the last thing that you ever heard. The sounds that narwhals make are so loud that they're said to be deafening to humans. Visiting the island of Socotra in Yemen can seem like you're on another planet. More than 30% of the plant life on the island isn't found anywhere else on Earth. Villagers along the Niger River in Zimbabwe were losing cows and people at such an alarming rate that they had to call in the National Army. The culprit? A 22-foot, 2,500-pound monster crocodile. The short-faced bear was once the most abundant bear in all of North America, until it went extinct around 11,000 BC. Some scientists argue that these massive bears delayed human migration into North America because they kept killing men trying to cross the Bering Strait. The Gu Lagoon. This is an underwater river in Mexico's Cenote Angelita. The different densities of the two waters cause them to form in layers. The black swallower is a deep-sea fish that can swallow animals more than 10 times its own mass, thanks to its expansive stomach. This 7-inch swallower was found dead after it swallowed and failed to digest a 34-inch mackerel. This isn't what you think it is. This is the carnivorous pitcher plant from the genus Nepenthes. The top acts as a lid for the lower pitcher structure, which traps and drowns insects in a syrupy fluid. Real classy, Mother Nature. This is a bull born without the protein myostatin, allowing for unrestricted muscle growth. In 2010, there was a massive flood in Pakistan that forced millions of spiders to climb up trees and build webs to avoid the rising waters. People claim that if you happen to stand under any of these trees, hundreds of tiny little spiders would fall all over your body. A man from South Africa adopted a hippo after it was rescued from a river. 5 years later, the hippo dragged him into the same river and mauled him to death. Armed with giant canine teeth, hippos kill more people each year than lions, elephants, leopards, buffalo, and rhinos combined. They can run at speeds up to 30 miles per hour despite weighing up to 4,000 pounds. So yeah, don't get a pet hippo. Point Nemo is officially known as the oceanic pole of inaccessibility, aka the point in the ocean that is farthest away from land. It is surrounded by more than 1,000 miles of ocean in every direction. At any given time, the closest humans to this point are most likely to be astronauts. In 1989, a Costa Rican fisherman named Chito rescued a dying crocodile and nursed it back to health. He tried to release the croc back into the wild, but it just kept coming back. The two would eventually become best friends, and for the next 2 decades, Chito would swim and play with the croc in the river outside of his home. He would hug and kiss the 16-foot-long crocodile he named Pocho, and taught it many tricks. Pocho knew how to roll over, wink, and would let Chito put his head in his mouth. The monster croc even responded when his name was called. Pocho sadly died in 2011, but this amazing crocodile-human relationship will never be forgotten. This is an incredible photo of an orangutan using a spear-like item to catch fish. According to many scientists, orangutans are entering their own stone age, meaning they're beginning to discover the use of basic tools. The vision of the pronghorn antelope is comparable to a human wearing wide-angle 10 times power binoculars. In other words, on a clear night, they can see the rings of Saturn. The great patu is an extremely rare tree-dwelling bird from tropical America. The bird is known for its eerie nocturnal cries and its stump-like appearance, making it a spooky master of disguise. Not to mention, it looks like an alien bird. In 1973, the US Army developed an anti-tank grenade by hollowing out a Nerf football and filling it with explosive charges. However, the prototype never made it to the battlefield, since the explosives gave the ball a wild and unpredictable flight. According to the Geneva Conventions, if you play dead to kill an enemy in a war scenario, then you are committing a war crime. During World War II, it was common for soldiers to keep photos of their loved ones under transparent grips on their M1911 pistols. They were known as sweetheart grips. This is what most of the trenches used during World War I look like today. At 4 a.m. on a Sunday morning, residents in the German town of Limburg woke up to the sound of a sudden blast. The next morning, they found a crater the size of a house in a nearby cornfield. Authorities soon determined that the blast was created by a 500-pound German bomb from World War II that spontaneously detonated. Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory was shot in West Germany in 1970. Producers for the film had a hard time finding little people to cast as Oompa Loompas since so many of them had been killed by Nazis during the Holocaust. During the Cold War, CIA agents used a secret method of communication based on how their shoelaces were tied. In 2016, a Chinese man realized the object he had been using to cut open walnuts for 25 years was actually a live stick grenade from the Vietnam War. After the attack on Pearl Harbor, the US government issued Mickey Mouse gas masks in case of a chemical attack. The incentive was to make them appear less scary to kids, but most people don't think it worked. An atomic bomb cameraman accidentally ripped off his safety goggles a few seconds before the bomb exploded. He immediately covered his eyes with his hands, and when the bomb detonated, he saw the bones of his hands through his closed eyelids just like an X-ray. When the Soviet Union was pushing towards Berlin during World War II, a Nazi SS soldier was forced to play piano for his captors. They made it clear to him in sign language that he would be executed the moment he stopped playing. He played for 22 straight hours, after which he collapsed in tears. They congratulated him, then shot him. This is what true horror looks like. In 2016, 13-year-old Abigail Williams and her friend Libby German were hiking on a trail in Indiana when they disappeared. A search team was sent out for them, and their bodies were found the very next day. The last known photo of Abigail, as well as photos of an unidentified man, were found on Libby's phone. There was also an audio clip of presumably the same man saying the phrase, "down the hill." No arrests have been made so far, but law enforcement has assured locals that the case has not yet gone cold. This 16th century woman from Venice was accused of being a vampire. She was buried with a brick in her mouth to prevent her from feasting on victims of the plague. This massive flying fox was found napping in someone's backyard in the Philippines. On one October night in 1997, someone managed to impale a pumpkin on top of McGraw Tower at Cornell University. The tower is more than 170 feet tall, and to this day, no one knows how the culprit did it. Say hello to Chimera arachne, a prehistoric relative of the spider with a spiky tail. This specimen was frozen in amber right around 100 million years ago. This 2,000-year-old Roman shoe was found inside of a well in an ancient fortress in modern-day Germany. The Temple of Bak Se Cham Rong in Cambodia, and the Mayan Temple of the Great Jaguar in Guatemala were built within a few hundred years of each other and are nearly identical in construction. But there's only one problem. They were built nearly 9,000 miles apart from each other, long before global communication had been established. A group of archaeologists discovered this bird claw while digging down a cave in New Zealand. Later on, they confirmed that it was the 3,300-year-old foot of a moa bird, which went extinct around 700 years ago. Oh no, someone's getting cursed. This power line in England happened to be laid straight through the skull of an Anglo-Saxon woman who was buried in a previously undiscovered graveyard from the 6th century. This ancient Aztec combat sword, known as the macahuitl, was made out of wood and obsidian rocks. Obsidian is 12 times sharper than surgical steel, as this sword could decapitate not only a man with one strike, but also a horse. This Pleistocene wolf is so well preserved that it looks like it could still be snarling today. It was found in Siberian permafrost, in the spot that it likely died some 40,000 years ago. This 2,000-year-old Roman bathhouse found in Algeria is still in use today. This is a sample of amber containing the bone, tissue, and feathers of a coelurosaur from the Cretaceous period. Researchers believe that this has the potential to be the most conclusive evidence so far that dinosaurs were feathered. This Incan girl was found perfectly preserved at the base of an Argentinian volcano. Her frozen body has been hailed as one of the best preserved Incan mummies ever found, as her hair, skin, and clothes still remain completely intact. She was likely the victim of a religious sacrifice some 500 years ago. This prehistoric fossil depicts a megalodon tooth stuck inside of a whale vertebrae. In 2011, a pair of Swedish treasure hunters detected a strange anomaly at the bottom of the Baltic Sea using sonar. While most scientists claim that it's a natural geological formation, some say the Baltic anomaly is something more mysterious, such as a sunken city or an ancient alien spacecraft. In 1941, a Polish soldier named Witold Pilecki volunteered to be placed in a concentration camp to prove to the Allies that the Holocaust was real. While a prisoner at Auschwitz, he organized resistance movements and eventually escaped after 3 years of imprisonment. Until he escaped, little had been known by the rest of the world about how the Germans ran the camps, as they were thought to be internment camps or large prisons rather than death camps. In 1958, the U.S. Air Force lost a 7,600-pound hydrogen bomb in Savannah, Georgia. It remains unfound somewhere in the Wassaw Sound to this day. Ben Salomon was a dentist in the U.S. Army who was shot 24 times while defending a medical center against the Japanese during World War II. He died after killing up to 98 attackers and allowing the wounded to be evacuated. His Medal of Honor was delayed until 2002 because medical officers were not supposed to bear arms against the enemy. Also during World War II, American soldier John Fox died after deliberately calling an artillery strike on himself. Realizing that German troops were overriding his position, the strike delayed the enemy long enough for other American units to organize a counterattack. During World War I, Hungarian soldier Paul Kern was shot in the head and lost part of his frontal lobe. However, instead of killing him, the gunshot otherwise made him unable to sleep. And as a result, the man stayed awake for the next 40 years until his death in 1955. A few doctors theorized that Kern likely fell asleep for seconds at a time throughout the day without even realizing it. Other doctors believed that the bullet tore away the part of his brain that needed to be replenished by sleep. But to this day, researchers still can't explain how he was able to survive for so long without sleeping. In 1964, the U.S. Army performed an experiment to see if 3 young physics students could design an atomic bomb. They had no specific knowledge of nuclear weapons and were only given access to publicly available documents. Within 3 years, they succeeded. Over 160 years ago, a Frenchman and a Russian shot at each other during the Crimean War and their bullets collided. During World War II, a Nazi officer ordered his soldiers to hold their fire to allow for the rescue of an American soldier who had stepped on a landmine. When no one came for help, the officer went to rescue the soldier but stepped on a landmine himself. During World War II, Yang Kyung-jong was a Korean soldier who was captured by the Japanese and forced to fight the Soviets. He was then captured by the Soviets and forced to fight the Germans. Eventually, he was captured by the Germans and forced to defend Normandy, where he was finally captured by Americans and sent to a prison camp. He is the only known soldier to have ever fought on 3 sides of a war. During World War II, many zoo animals in Germany were taken care of by civilians in their own homes. In 1961, the U.S. Army accidentally dropped a hydrogen bomb on North Carolina. The bomb was 260 times more powerful than the nuke dropped on Hiroshima. Only a single switch prevented it from detonating. The loudest sound ever heard on Earth was the eruption of Krakatoa in 1883. The explosion had a nuclear yield 13,000 times greater than the atomic bomb dropped on Hiroshima. It ruptured the eardrums of sailors 40 miles away, and people as far as 3,000 miles away reported hearing it as a distant roar of heavy guns. To put that into perspective, it would be like sitting in Boston and hearing a sound that came all the way from Ireland. It was one of the most destructive volcanic eruptions in history, since at least 35,000 people died and the global temperature was lowered by 2 degrees Fahrenheit for 5 years. Sitting in his car, he allowed his pet king cobra to bite him multiple times on each arm. He was found dead from cardiac arrest and the snake was never found. The man who once had the longest beard in the world died after he stepped on it and broke his neck. Diana Ross, who sang "Ain't No Mountain High Enough," lost her ex-husband in a mountain climbing accident. In 1975, a man died from laughter while watching his favorite TV show, The Goodies. His widow later sent the program a letter thanking them for making her husband's final moments so pleasant. In Houston, Texas, a 19-year-old man named Rashad died while attempting to play Russian roulette. Apparently, he didn't know how the game works since he tried using a semi-automatic pistol instead of a revolver. Alexander I of Yugoslavia refused to make a public appearance on a Tuesday after 3 of his family members died on a Tuesday. After finally being forced to appear on a Tuesday, he was promptly assassinated. In 2010, an MI6 agent was found naked and dead inside of a padlocked bag in his London home. Police concluded that he accidentally locked himself in the bag and died as a result. In 2001, a man was shot dead while testing out a bulletproof potion that he received from a witch doctor. After applying the potion for 2 weeks, he asked a fellow villager to shoot him so that he could test it out. Turns out the potion was just cherry Kool-Aid and the man died instantly.